Okay. Today I will be responding to the claim that dog breed banning laws are unnecessary. My opponent's secondary claims were: 1, that these laws fail to make communities safer for people and other dogs; 2, these laws fail to be followed and accepted; and 3, these laws fail to resolve the real problem. First, I will respond to the first secondary claim. The first secondary claim was that breed-specific legislation fails to make communities safer for people and other animals. Some of the evidence mentioned was irrelevant for the secondary claim. The evidence mentioned was from ASPCA, and it said that Prince George's County, Maryland, spent more than $250,000 annually to enforce its ban on pit bulls. This does not support the secondary claim that communities are safer for the people and other pets in the community, because it's the amount of money spent and it doesn't determine the effectiveness of the law. My opponent also used statistics and they didn't include some statistics. These statistics were from an article called The Dog Bite Epidemic, a primer. The yearly average of deaths was 17 in the 1980s and 1990s. As stated above, there were 33 deaths in 2007, 23 in 2008, 30 in 2009, and 34 in 2010. I think this is important to include the amount of deaths per year that my opponent didn't, because it goes from 33 deaths to 23 deaths, decreasing. Another thing to also take into account is that it's a 30-year gap, and that means that it would be one more death every 2 years. Also, according to American Veterinary Medical Association, in 2001, the number of owned dogs was 37,900,000, and in 2007 there were 43,021,000. This increase of dog attacks may be related to the increase in number of dogs, and my opponent did not mention this. And the reasoning for the argument that the law failed to improve safety is not acceptable, because there's no comparison to the amount of deaths that have occurred before the law. And then a counterclaim for the argument was that people are still going to be bitten by dogs no matter what. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 4.5 million people are bitten by dogs Americans are bitten by dogs each year. The people are still going to be bitten, but there needs to be a law to regulate dogs that are biting. An analogy that will go well with this is that the amount of dogs biting is similar to drinking laws. People drink when they're underage, but there's still a law that regulates the drinking age. So why should we take away a law that regulates certain dogs? Now I will respond to the second secondary claim. The second secondary claim was that breed-specific legislation fails to be followed and accepted. This claim does not support the main argument that laws are unnecessary because people are breaking the law, and this is not the law's fault. People who break the law should be fined for what they're doing. The law is still necessary, it just needs some more enforcement so that people will stop. Now I will respond to the third secondary claim. The third secondary claim was that the law fails to resolve the real problem. This secondary claim is very vague because it doesn't really mention what my opponent is trying to say, and I believe my opponent is trying to say that the owners are irresponsible because they use evidence that says that. Showing that owners are irresponsible that is the cause for dogs attacking people isn't necessarily true, because the owner may not have control of their dogs. I found an article on pit bulls from RescueEveryDog.org which said that, developed for the purpose of fighting other dogs, most pit bulls are dog aggressive. This means that pit bulls have instinct to be aggressive toward other dogs and may attack them, which isn't the owner's fault. In conclusion, I responded to the claim that breed-specific legislation is unnecessary. My opponent's secondary claims were that I refuted were the laws fail to make the community safer, the laws fail to be followed and accepted, and the law fails to resolve the real problem. And I challenge the evidence, reasoning, and use counterclaims. Thank you.
Is the Guardian a credible source? As I heard, since it's supposed to be a tabloid.
I don't know that the Guardian is a tabloid.
That's what I've heard.
I'm not sure. The UK Guardian? I'd have to look at it. It depends on what they're saying. All right, Michael, you laid out the claims pretty clearly. You've got good transitions between the points, so it's easy to follow. The relevance challenge on the first point, based on the study in Maryland on the costs that are going on there, that might be true if there is no difference in the number of dog bites or dog attacks or dog deaths in that particular area, or if there was a difference. I don't remember the exact information that the advocate had on that particular point, but it seemed to me like there was some information that talked about whether or not there was a difference in that, and the argument was that the money hadn't made any difference and that the law, in fact, had not made any difference. If you have something different that shows that there were a decrease in the number of dog bites or even deaths, or then I suppose that your argument is a little bit more relevant. So I'm not sure that the advocate was just making a cost argument there. They were making an effectiveness argument, and I'm not sure that you have explained it very clearly. Now, the next set of numbers, you've got a whole series of numbers about deaths and the population of dogs and what the death numbers have been over the years. And I was not able to really follow what the inference was that you're making. And I think you need to make clearer declarative sentences. You've got these long explanations, a series of data, and then another explanation. Oral communication sometimes requires that you simplify the language and just say, tell us first what the argument is, and then give us the explanation. So basically I'm going to argue that the number of deaths has decreased as a result of something other than the decline in pit bulls, or the number of deaths has increased despite the regulations that we have, or the number of deaths has substantially increased, and I think that may be due to the number of these breeds that are available. Tell us what that is, and then give us the explanation. You just kind of dive in and give us the explanation, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, so where is this argument going? And I sometimes couldn't even follow the explanation that's going on there. So you need to simplify the claim a little bit. I can tell that there's data there and that you're trying to make an inference, but I couldn't tell what that inference was. On the second point, you mostly are dismissing the argument. Challenging the premise there. There's not really any evidence other than what the advocate presented on this point. You don't directly attack that evidence, so it's, you've got a different point of view on that, and that's about it. On the last point, I think that, let me see, you do have one piece of information that I think is definitely applicable here, and that is the aggressive nature of the dogs, that is a direct contradiction to the claim that the advocate is presenting. I thought you had a pretty good summary, and the summary is one of those places where you can often make those arguments earlier that were unclear a little bit sharper, and the same sort of thing, if they're declarative sentences, they'll be easier to follow. All right, thank you.